So there's a property called divider. Currently, the default might look strange. So let's see what parameters divider takes. So we want to increase the thickness and possibly give it like a darker gray kind of color. But let's just see how it looks on white. So let's just say thickness. What kind of parameter does it take? I think it should be a double. Yep, a double. So we'll just say 1.5. Let's see how that looks. Then a color of, we'll name it colors.white because I believe we don't need the color parameter, right? So great. So let's save this and reload. All right, so far so good. We can see we have our divider there looking decent. I won't want to make it too great because if we do that, it might just disappear into the background. But there are obviously other styling things we want to consider in place. But I think let's just focus on getting more of the structure down. Then we focus on making it look like the way the app is. So we want to begin looking at this section right here. Okay, so one thing we're going to do is, since this sort of repeats, we will do our best to create something reusable. But for the meantime, let's just create one of them. All right, so one thing we'll do right here is we would bring in a row, since they are in a row, right? And we're going to have a row of children. These children would take in some columns. So we'll have a row of columns. So we'll have one for wind and rain and humidity. So for rain here, we'll have a column. So we'll call children. So what do we have here? We have mainly three texts. One represents the wind. So we'll say text. We'll call this one wind. And we would also say text, say 13 or 12, however. Then we're looking at the distance, which will now be another text there, which is kilometer per hour. We need a comma right here so that that stuff goes away. All right, great. Hot reload. So it has finished reloading, but I think everything is lost in this dark section here. We will have to change them to white. You know the drill. Same stuff. We'll add the style, and we'll have a text style, and we'll have a color. Okay, so we save, we reload that, but although we still need to have this style on this other ones so that we can see our text. So we want to have a comma right there, another comma right here, Control S, and hot restart. Let's see. All right, looking good so far. One more thing, we would install like a package. So I think this will be like the first package we'll be installing in this series. But we'll just, like I said, let's just focus on getting the whole template in there. So we'll call this indicator. Since we have that, as we can see that this is gearing towards the center, what we're gonna do is, like I've said in other portions of the video, and just put in the cross-axis alignment. Axis and dot star. All right, so we'll do ahead and save that again. Let's just save. I'm adding up some commas so that at least everything is readable on these two ends here. Okay, so I'm reloading, and would you know, it's gone to the edge there. That's pretty good. The next major thing we want to do is, like I mentioned, we want to possibly separate this into like a reusable function. Okay, so what I mean, let's try to create a reusable function here so that we get a feel of what I'm talking about. All right, so what we're going to do is we're just going to do a few things. One is cut out this column right here. So Control X or Command X, and I will take out that stuff. Okay, there are a few things we can do, or a few ways we can go about it, and I think let's just go with it the standard way. So let's go ahead to our screens yet again and create a folder. Let's call this miscellaneous because it's going to have every other thing that our app will need to function: extras, reusable components, so on and so forth. All right, so let's go ahead and create a new file, and let's see what is the best name that describes this stuff we are looking at right here. Let's just call this a weather gauge, because I believe everything here is trying to gauge something or measure something. Okay, so that's you trying to measure the wind, the rain, and humidity. What we're going to do in miscellaneous, we'll call this weather gauge. If I can spell, but let's just call it GAUGE dot. That being said, the file is creating. One thing we want to also go ahead and do is create a stateless widget. First of all, import material dot dart. All right, don't forget your semicolon, put that in there. And yeah, like I said, let's create a stateless widget. So just type in STL and we have our semi-stateless widget. Let's name this. So we'll call this weather gauge section, because I believe this is the section in itself. Go ahead and paste up what we've already done here. Currently, right now, we are still going to make changes to this, but I want us to do a few things and see how that goes. So we'll go back to our body, right, our body file, and we're just gonna do type weather gauge, spelling, weather gauge section. All right, so since we have this, we can copy it for the other sections that we have as well, so that it represents those three stuff. Okay, so one other thing I will do before I save and reload is I'm gonna try to create space between them, because if I just put this right now, everything will be clustered together, right? And in comparison here, we want everything to spread out and breathe. Okay, so what we're gonna do is this. We're just gonna turn this into, or we'll put in the main axis alignment property. Main axis alignment. We would use this property called space between, right? Which would definitely give us equal spacing among these multiple columns that we have. So it will space them out evenly. So once you have that, reload your app. Our app is done loading, and we can see that everything has spaced out evenly, which is pretty good. Like I mentioned, there are a few things we need to get done. Obviously, one, we need to make things look the way that they are here. Two, everything's not going to just mention or be wind, same temperature, so for all of them, but we are going to now make this dynamic, in the sense that the data will change based on what is being passed in. So that will make more sense once I start developing it. So let's go ahead and get started. A few things we want to do is this. We want to like go back to our reusable stateless class, and then change up some parameters that we know would definitely affect our application. So for instance, we want to have our wind changing, our speed changing, and this unit also changing, right? So we're going to call three of these stuff. We're going to make them what we call parameters, so that we can send them from here. Instead of our body, we can pass, okay, wind, humidity, and rain, or so on and so forth, speed, into these sections. So let's just get into it, and it will make more sense. So what we want to do is, over here we would define some parameters. We'll call the final keyword, then data type, which is going to be a string, since we want this to be a string. Really, all of them will be strings. We'll say final string, and let's just call this the title, because I think that describes it a little bit better. We're going to call this, what are we going to call this now? Let's see, we'll just call it, yeah, let's just call it unit value, right? Let's just call it unit value. Then we'll call this the unit. One thing you now know is this, you now see is this particular function more or less is trying to look for these parameters that is looking for. So we can do it in one of two ways. We can just click in and add final formal parameters. So that means it would include all of them for us. Okay, or we could type it out like this. But in reality, this is not even all of it, all the things that need to be done. Because right now, we've set everything as final in the sense that once this value is here, it's not going to change. One thing is, once you have final, you want to have something called required, so that anyhow it is, these parameters are going to be required regardless. Let me just put in the final required, then we change up inside of this. So we'll call this title straight from here. We'll call this the unit value, and then the unit itself. If we save that, we see like this is now everything that we require to make this thing dynamic. But now if we go back to our body, we'll see that we are going to be receiving some errors, okay, because it's now looking for these parameters that we have set. Let's just go ahead and give it what it needs. Say this is wind and a unit value of 12, although this is supposed to be a string. Okay, we'll do something. Then we'll have our unit itself as kilometer per hour. Right now, if you can see that we have a slight error here because it's looking for a string. Let's just make it a string then. So, but there are some other things we could do. We could change this to an integer or double or whatever, and just change the parameter here from string to like a double or an int, and then possibly add a .toString here, because the text does not take integers or doubles, but it takes strings only. So if we add the .toString method here, you will see that it pops up, but that's not what we need here right now. So giving it a string of 12, that should be fine. Instead of us wasting too much time and filling up the rest, we can just copy what we have here and paste and paste. So we're going to change this to what actually is inside of the app. So we change this to rain 0 and percentage. Then this is also going to be a percentage, and we have 88 and humidity. All right, so far so good, guys. We save that and reload the app. All right, so everything is appearing as we need them to be. Some more final stuff we should do before we fill in the other aspects of the app that is missing, and also start getting into integrating the API and such. Let's just finalize the whole UI thing, right? This is not the way this looks, so we should do our best to make that look as close as possible. And since, like I've said, we've made this reusable, that means whatever changes we make here affects everything, which at least reduces development time, to develop, instead of us styling for every one of them, doing that multiple times. Try to integrate reusability inside of your applications, whether you have programming experience or not, your app being reusable, or some components or things in your app being reusable. It should be a goal you should strive for. So enough of that little ramble. Let us go ahead and do some work. A few things we can notice: we have a slight spacing between this wind and stuff. So what we're gonna do is just add a padding. We'll add a padding, and this is gonna be symmetrical since we want to affect the vertical axis of our app. So symmetric. We're just gonna say vertical, and let's just give it a spacing of like 8. Yeah. Then our font is a bit dark here, so instead of us using white, let's use gray. If you haven't, you should look at colors and see all the colors that are available to you. There are also multiple ways of adding colors into your Flutter app. You can use your hexadecimals, or if you're already familiar or you're coming from like front end language, you should know what these color representations mean. If you don't, you can go ahead and do some research. Like I mentioned, we'll use gray here. And one thing we can know about gray, especially when you start building some things with Flutter, is they have different variations of it. So if we put in these square brackets and put in a number, so let's just hover around gray and see what options we have right there. So you have gray from all the way of 50. You can see that they have different shades. And I think what we want to go for is one that's like 300 to 350. because that's not really too gray, but let's just say 400. Let's see what 400 looks like. So we've made these changes. Let's save and see how that looks like. I think also we want to add some font weight as well, because these fonts are they're not thick enough, you know what I mean? So font weight dot, let's say W600. So that should be bold, but not too bold. And I think a font size is due here. Let's make a font size of say 14, or let's just say 15. Hopefully that's not too big, but whatever it is, we can reduce the size later. So we save and reload the app. As you can see, our app is looking quite decent. Okay, so what we're going to do is go ahead and make this bold as well and increase the font size. So we'll do that for these two. I think we can copy some of this stuff so we don't waste too much time. I think this should be bold, just straight up bold. And this can have say 20. We copy these two and paste it in here as well. All right, but I think this lower section is a bit smaller, so we can put that out like 13. But let's save that and see. That looks semi okay. Just I think we need to increase this by say like 4 so it stands out more. Yep. All right, so this is looking good, although I had to change this up to like 26, so from that 24, but this looks pretty much decent in my own books. Okay, this video is already becoming quite long for for like the part 3, so we'll cut it off here. And next video we're gonna be doing some real work, which would include obviously adding the icons that we need, installing packages, and yeah, the entire 9 yards. But I hope you guys are learning something, and everything we've said here makes sense up to this point. If you haven't already, please do consider subscribing. Gives me mad motivation and also tells me that you guys like this kind of content. We need some more of it. But the one thing we'll do before we go is we want to actually still add some padding. The padding that we've given here is not enough, so let's go ahead and add the required padding. We'll go to the body. This row, we are going to add padding, and we'll have a symmetric, very symmetric. Yeah, I think we will have horizontal of 10. That should do. We have that, we save it or reload our app. All right, so that is looking good. At least we have our spacing in between. Though I think we might still need some more padding across the board. I will just go ahead and highlight this horizontal of 10 because I think we have more of those. Highlight that, and I'll use Ctrl D or Command D. Let's try to highlight everywhere that we see that horizontal of 10. Okay, so we'll have a highlight here, we'll have a highlight here, so on. So we want to increase the padding, say like 5 more, so it's a little bit in there. All right, we want this this divider to be, we're just going to add like a padding that's, you know, a vertical padding. So we have our padding, and yeah, we just make it symmetric. Okay, let's say vertical of, let's just put it at 32 should be fine. Still don't think so. Let's see how far we can go before it now start looking weird. That should do it. Right, that's looking a little bit better. At least we are getting closer to our goal in this app. with that being said, thanks ladies and gentlemen for watching. I'll see you in the next video where we would go ahead and do some more work. Hopefully wrap up the video in the next video or two. That being said, see you guys around. Peace.